Yeah, that's what it's called.
Mario Kart?
It's the only acceptable.
Very You have another license to get. You'd be good now.
Hey, I can't get any underage.
How long you playing a video game?
You can get overages.
Like Mario Kart, like the game, you drink while you play it.
That's what I
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were like thinking I was actually driving and drinking.
Oh.
Are
you?
No. Actually, drinking alcohol.
Bubbler.
Oh, I thought you were making want to sniff my water.
All right. On that note, and once I'm done with dessert, should we continue on learning about dopamine?
Did I tell you I got a dopamine tattoo on my tricep? My left tricep. It has the chemical compound dopamine.
Nice. And you probably got a little dopamine while they were doing it.
I did a little bit. I told it. I actually said that, and they just didn't care when I told them.
Is everybody familiar with the book Dopamine Nation?
Yes, like I've not read it. Is it good?
Very, very good.
Is it like
Anna Lemke out of Stanford.
what's it about?
Dopamine,
Like how we kind of change it?
Yeah.
All right. So, speaking of Anna Lemke, dopamine decisions drive a reward. So part of this dopamine thing increases, Alexis, susceptibility to,
Addiction.
yes, susceptibility to addiction, which is actually Anna Lemke's primary field of study. She's an addiction researcher at Stanford, and then started to see correlations between how dopamine operated and substance addiction operated. And that's what led to her research on dopamine and the writing of the book Dopamine Nation. So it's more than just, so if we can just say, I'm going to stay away from substances, doesn't necessarily mean we're fully in the clear with certain things, because the dopamine cycles that we get in can be problematic, especially for adolescents. So that's part of why they are more susceptible to substance use or substance addiction during adolescence. All right. Another piece, the hyperrationality, the thing I've kept referring to. So that's when you kind of just dial in on the facts, but lose the sense in the big picture. So the odds are nothing's going to happen if I do this. But the big picture says, but in the rare chance that it does happen, here's the consequence that you're not connecting it to. Is that a price you're really willing to pay? That's also the piece that I've kept saying over and over again here today. It will happen to somebody else. It's not going to happen to me until it does. But our brain, but there's positive reasons. We talked about that the other week. There's positive reasons for the brain doing that, but it also produces a danger. I should probably just take this out because we've already said it more times than we need to. More weight given to positive than negative. This is probably a no-brainer. Dopamine is stronger when socializing or anticipating somebody else seeing you. So that's the story of the drinking at the private school party at the dean's house before. You know, the young woman was sitting here. She knew she was going to be socializing. She knew others were going to see. There was that social factor. You know, how others were going to react. You know, just that anticipation of, you know, if they gave her a really positive reaction, that would feel really good. She could just imagine the dopamine surge that would come with that. What's even better than imagining a dopamine surge? Getting a dopamine surge. And so she ended up going in that direction. So we often do things that we would not necessarily do alone, but in the midst of other people, and that's highly amplified with adolescents. Finally here, fun word. Anybody heard of just thinking? I think that's how you pronounce it. Gist?
Just.
We want to say gist? Gist?
That's the gist of it.
Just thinking. So this is what we developed later on. So So this is the direction the brain is going, and this is the type of thinking that the work that we do with adolescents, or help parents do, or teachers do, or whoever supporting the adolescents, when they're helping them to reflect, when they're helping them to have self-insight. Just thinking is when we start to develop the larger context for things. That's that abstract thinking. We can start to see how things connect. It's when we have enough experience that our intuition can kind of kick in. Like, oh, I've experienced this before, so I have a feeling that it may happen again. How many here are intuitives? Okay, so some of you are hands raised high, some of you are So some of us here probably go with, give me all the facts. I want the data. I'm going to make a decision based on that. Intuitives, not that we don't take in facts, but we take in facts. But at the end of the day, it's kind of, we'll take that in, but it interacts with what we call that gut feeling. Okay? So we get our intuition, and I don't know why I'm moving in this direction, but I have enough experience that has informed me, and I will tend to move in that direction. So just thinking the larger context and intuition begin to develop. So hopefully, for a lot of us, if that's not, some of us, this is your strong suit. I never realized it until I went through this program. Sam Zaid, who just retired from St. Mary's, she was the program director there. She substituted for a year doing supervision my second year. So she was my supervisor second semester, and she did a thing at the very last day where she did a note card thing for each of us with one word that kind of described how she viewed us. And I'm not sure how she picked it up, but my word was intuition. So I kind of reflected on that. And I mean, I'd heard the word before, but I'd never thought about it through that lens. And I started to reflect. I realized, how much I do through that feeling sense, that intuition. And obviously, it came through the mirror because she kind of saw how I operated. And again, the more experience, and part of that was I had a lot of experience working with families coming into this program. So it wasn't as brand new, so I brought in a lot. For some of you that it might be brand new, but just rest assured, the more time you spend in the clinic, the more time you're working with clients, the more experiences you have, that intuition will begin to develop. And just thinking helps us to aim for positive values that we care about. So that's a great thing to talk about with students. So often, we can either rail on their behaviors, or we can say, so I noticed that behavior happened. How does that fit in with your goals for life and what you value? And often there will be a disconnect. Well, just thinking is the point of our life where we start moving more towards just the impulse that we have for something to, I want to go after the values that I have. Okay? So that's kind of the other side. And the work that we do, just thinking is starting to develop, and the work that we're doing can help to develop that and start to speed up the process of moving from the old type of thinking to more of this just thinking. Okay. Thoughts, questions? All right. Again, a little bit repetitive from the seminar, but talking about the purpose of adolescence. I just always like to highlight, and Siegel's highlighting here, why this is such an important area of life. A lot of us might just say, oh, it'd be so nice if we could just skip over all that. Like, all of us are like, I don't want to go back to middle school, high school. And a lot of times parents are like, can we just get to the next phase of life? But this is a very important and there's a lot of purpose to the adolescence. So it's really a vital part of both our individual and our collective lives. And it's a stage to cultivate. There's a lot happening. There's a lot developing within a person. I've used it before. My favorite analogy is you can't go from being a child to an adult with a light switch like that. It's like a dimmer switch that just kind of has to slowly move. You have to go through the process of moving that. You don't just flip the switch. So it's really a stage to cultivate because there are so many great qualities. There are things that happen in our childhood that we can parse out and heal and work on and say, this is how I responded as a child, but I don't want to take that into my future as an adult, so we can work on that kind of stuff and just start to develop the brain skills, the body skills that we need to really move forward in life. It's allowing certain abilities to emerge. Okay? So on the left are things that we tend to look at maybe through a little bit of a negative light. We don't like it when teens are pushing us away. Parents don't like that, right? When I told the story the other week of the student that came to the program that I was leading and they gave me the laser eyes of death, like, I don't want anything to do with you, and pushed me away. You know, it didn't feel good, but there was a purpose to that at the time. But that pushing away allows people to leave home, right? We've highlighted the fact that, you know, if we turn this place into a Club Med resort, nobody would ever leave, right? If this was super comfortable and just every need was met and plush and just amazing. But, you know, we hit that place where eventually we want to push away from something.
What about meeting us halfway?
That's what the lounge is. 2 nice couches in there, right? But it allows us to leave home. The hyper-rational thinking, there's a purpose. We need to take risks in life. If we don't take any risks, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stay stagnant. We don't want to go to the point of danger, but we need that hyper-rational thinking to kick in for a period of time so that we do take steps we wouldn't otherwise make. That social engagement piece where we really focus on social connections that, you know, parents don't always like why don't they like me anymore? Why won't they ever stay home? They're making social connections. But that's really helping them figure out, you know, again, who are my people going forward? And I need to learn how to create a safe group of people. It was really fun. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. My wife just got back late last night from Phoenix. So, Katie, I heard you say Phoenix earlier.
Yeah, get to go.
Yeah. So she was down visiting our daughter who's a freshman there. It's been such a busy year for us, and she was asking, can at least one of you come down one time during my freshman year? So we were looking like we're a week and a half from now, we're down to Kansas for a college visit for my other daughter. It's like, oh my gosh, can we just stay home? But she went down there and had a chance to meet this group of friends that she's collected. And she couldn't stop thanking them enough. It was fun to hear because I haven't met any of them yet, but she said this was just the sweetest group. 3 guys, it's like friends basically. 3 guys, 3 girls. My daughter kind of pulled them all together. They weren't necessarily part of the same thing, but it was just like we all belong together. And my wife said they don't just they know each other's schedules in detail. They don't just get together once or twice a week like she imagined. Everybody's together with somebody all throughout the day. Not all together, but they're together. And just the greatest group of people. Really brought my wife in. You know, she was, hey, has Mama Krim arrived yet? Was kind of what the phrase was. So it was really fun to see my daughter, you know, at that scary new phase of life. I mean, I remember going to college, and I got stuck in the dorm. The cops kept showing up too, and I did not connect with anybody on my floor hardly. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I found my people at college because my freshman year just sucked. Well, I mean, not overall, but my floor sucked. But you know, so she really found her safe group of people, which I'm really happy to see for her. And then that whole idea of novelty and creative exploration. I want these just seared into your brains, right? Students go after the novel. When you say left to right, they're going to go right to left. Even for you as a therapist, you're going to be like, I know what's good for you. Please do what I'm saying. No, my therapist, I want to do it the other way. They're going to push against parents. They're going to push against you. But that's how they develop the skills for adapting to a changing world. If they just did it how the older generations told them to do it, you know, I try to keep up with how the world's changing, but I can only do so well with it. And so the world just keeps changing, and we need different thought processes. And that's what novelty and creative exploration get people out and doing and taking risks and figuring out how to move forward. All right, so just, you know, we highlighted the risk-taking, the impulsivity, the things that can be challenging. As you talk to parents, teachers, whoever you're working with, learn to highlight or the students themselves, learn to highlight the positives. You know, why is this happening? It's got great value to it. All right. Making decisions. This integration concept that we keep talking about. Oh, let's start with that. So who wants to push back on me for left brain, right brain? It came up in somebody's reflection, or maybe in a couple. Don't tell me they're not here. Okay.
I mean, I wrote about it, but I didn't write about it in the terms of which one was better. I wrote about it in hearing the dichotomy of professors talking about it.
Oh, maybe that was it. So another professor said,
It wasn't a thing.
and in a way that's true.
Okay.
And Siegel would even, like, there's no pure, like, the left brain doesn't 100% do this and the right brain does this. But if you try to break down the complexity of the brain and truly explain that to everybody, boom, we're lost. So in some way you have to kind of break it down. And so a lot of the things that we talk about with left brain, it's not that they're 100% left brain, but predominantly the left brain handles certain areas more and the right brain handles certain areas more. And what we do know is, the corpus callosum divides on the middle, and there's neurons that transition information back and forth, and you need the information connecting back and forth so that the two sides are working together. So this whole thing called integration. So we want the left brain playing nice with the right brain. We want the upper brain playing nice with the lower middle part of the brain. We want my life and your life relating in a good way. Because there could be social integration too. So there's all these different domains of integration. And so as our brain integrates the different areas together, as we develop the cortex up here, this is the prefrontal cortex. When that begins to develop is what helps pull everything together. Otherwise, it's kind of on its own. It's a bunch, like I said, a bunch of middle schoolers running around the band room just blasting their instruments. So the prefrontal cortex is the conductor that says, sit down and shut up! Take out your music, this is what we're playing. Okay? So integration begins to bring us cognitive control. When these things pull together. Because actually what Siegel says, and I don't think it's on any of my slides here, but he defines mental and integration equals mental and emotional well-being. So whenever we have something that we call a mental health challenge, symptom, disorder, the way that he views it is there are parts of the brain that aren't connecting and integrating the way they're supposed to be. So when we have integration, as a person, you will experience mental and emotional well-being. When there's something that's disintegrated, you will experience some challenges. So integration brings cognitive control over the mind. It brings decreased impulsivity. It brings the just thinking that we just talked about. Okay? So that's helping us out. It helps to channel the reward drive in a constructive direction. Or that's what we have the opportunity to do. So I told the story about, sorry, losing my voice here. We told the story about the young person who wanted to drive a car really fast and ended up killing Siegel's professor in the process of that. What were they going after? There was a reward, a dopamine hit that they were getting from driving really fast. That's why you do those kind of things, why you jump off of things, why you drive cars faster, or do those different kind of things. But as we think about decision making, we have the opportunity to help them learn how to channel that reward drive in a constructive direction. Because we don't have to say, no, don't experience anything exciting. Like, just do boring stuff. You can say, okay, let's do exciting things, but let's help you find something that will give you something like you're looking for, but in a safe, constructive way.
So the saying that everybody likes to throw around, the term jumped up for you when I was reading this. That's like where my brain went because they brought up
probably older, but I mean, a lot of times we know neuroscience. I mean, like both Buddhist and Christian history in the contemplatives, what we call mindfulness today. They didn't know the neuroscience behind mindfulness, but they knew they had some general understanding of these practices cause the brain to do certain things, and we get benefits from that. Man, I want to show you. Great Instagram. I sent it to my son. It was kids encouraging their friend to do something. He totally crashes. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
It's so funny. I'll show you later. All right. Risky behavior. So let's say you jumped off the cliff and had a nice landing. My first year going to that camp that I talked about, we swung on the vines out over that cavern. The vine never broke. Now, I think the first year we tested it, made sure it was strong enough. The second year, we just assumed, we were so excited, there we are with all our friends, let's go do that awesome thing we did last year. Let's forget to test the vine. We didn't pull on it. I grabbed it, I went and I swung out, snap, wham! Thought I broke my hand on the ground. All right, so risky behavior without consequences can reinforce itself. I didn't have any consequences my first year. It's one of the reasons why I encourage parents, be careful about taking away the natural consequences. I'm not a big fan of adding extra consequences onto things for students. Actually, I don't believe that really serves too much of a function. If they're going to respond to consequences, they're going to respond to the natural. The unnatural that you add on are pretty unnecessary.
Can you give me an example, because I've never been a parent, what that looks like? So you mean like, don't ground them or take their phone away?
Yes.
Just like when your daughter was like, why can't you be a normal parent?
Give me your phone. No. Yeah. So I've never taken phones away from kids. I mean, I can't tell you how much I hear that in my office. Yep. Their grades are going bad, so I took their phone away. This didn't go well, I took their phone away. They got in trouble with school, and they got detention for a week, and so I grounded them for another 2 weeks. Okay, the natural consequence came with the school and the environment. What does a concrete brain, they're still not very abstract, how well does their brain connect, you grounding them at home, to what happened at school? It doesn't. There's really no benefit to that. It's just kind of an old system of rewards and punishments that we've created. But a natural consequence, you do something happen, you're failing your grades at school and you can't, you're off the sports team for 2 weeks until you get your grades back up. That's more of a corollary, I'm not even a huge fan of that because it's not even quite connected to the classroom. If you're taking away their sport, the thing that actually might, like, they have a certain brain, that activity might actually help them do better in the classroom, taking them away from it. You're just assuming it's their time that they're putting into something else that made them not do their homework, maybe just do their homework or study for that test. So we kind of come up with these creative but unnecessary ways to try to motivate that if it worked, it would have worked the first time you did it, and you wouldn't have to keep doing it, but you keep doing it over and over and over again. Are you starting to pick up on the fact that it probably doesn't work that way? And let's look at another way of approaching it.
Reminds me of Pearl and what's their name? Duke. How the kids get disciplined, but they're trying to do all these things and they're overworking. This is our case study for Candace's class.
Nice.
There's a lot of case studies going around, so make sure that's wrong.
Because we can't put you in the clinic yet. That's all we can do.
We'll get there someday.
All right. So yeah, risky behavior without consequences can reinforce it. Honor and don't disrespect. If you're going to work with adolescents, this is my hope for you. Because it could get easy. I mean, just like any population that frustrates people, you can get kind of jaded towards. It can be easy as parents come in, or you're working with teens that are frustrating you to kind of get jaded, and kind of be disrespectful and not honor. But that's why I keep soaking myself in this stuff, because I remember, okay, this is what's going on. There's so much development happening, and if I can just honor that process and not disrespect them, not shame them, not I don't even know what I want to say there. Yeah, but just not make them. Because, things aren't going. Remember how hard it was in high school and other times? You felt that enough when things weren't going well. You probably didn't need other people pouring on more of that. And so if somebody could come along inside you and say, hey, I agree, that wasn't okay. Can I help you with that? It's normal. This kind of stuff happens. It happens to me when I was your age. It's going to keep happening. How can I support you and honor the process? Don't disrespect. And then the timing piece, just remember, it starts with genetics. I want to keep highlighting that. And it's shaped by integration. So that's why we're doing the therapy that we're doing, because the more of that type of work you do during this age frame, if you have the opportunity to do it, it's going to help speed up the integration of your brain and move them in that direction faster. So how do we do this both as therapists and trainers of others? How many of us here are good at promoting the positive? It depends.
For other people, yes.
Oh.
Myself,
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
I'm good at telling other people that they're amazing.
Yeah.
And then,
Hey, Miranda.
yeah,
You're amazing.
thanks. And I'm not gonna do that.
At least you're honest.
So it's not that we can't say things aren't hard or problematic or things like that, but it's kind of that wheel of awareness thing with the positive and negative. It's really easy for us to focus on the negative. Some people on their intakes form will have. I love this question with parents. So it's not really on what I gave you so far, but sometimes it'll be strengths. I love sitting there with a teen and asking their parent, what do you see as your son or daughter's or child's strengths? And then, they're usually there to talk about the problem, right? And then they pause. Well, they're really good at this and they're amazing this way. I love this characteristic about them. And to have them say that right in front of their student can be a really fun thing. So finding ways to promote the positive. This has become a huge central point for me, and I'm going to explain. I had to put in the word diet for myself, so I remember to talk about it. Learning to aim for things rather than inhibiting. Okay, so this is kind of partly where the punishment thing comes in. So we can work with people and just look at them and say, stop doing that. And try to inhibit their behaviors. Don't feel that way. Stop thinking that. Don't do that behavior. Has anybody ever seen the Stop It video? Old comedian.
Oh.
Blanking on his name. From Newhart. Bob Newhart.
Yeah. Stop it.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Yep. I might show that later. I might show
When you said old, I perked up.
2 videos.
I think I must know this.
Now I've got 2 videos.
Yeah, he's like looking between you and I, and it's like, what are you saying, Ryan?
Oh. So Ann Ramage, the one I mentioned earlier, that did a lot of this training for me, she was still here when my wife was in the program, and they were in staffing, and they had a new case, and Ann was known for anybody has an opening, we're going to fill every single opening. She just, get clients in, get clients in, get clients in, and everybody was maxed to the full. I think Jen had 1 opening. And so she's reading the thing and and this person's requesting an older therapist, and looks right at Jen. And Jen's like, why are you looking at me? Well, you're no spring chicken. But But Jen and I both love Anne. I mean, Anne's got a prickly side, and then Anne's a teddy bear. So you have to accept both of them together. I love Anne to death. But anyway, so you're getting me off. Sorry, I'm off. So looking to aim at things rather than inhibiting. So does dieting work? And why from a neuroscientific perspective? Why?
I think it's because I think about this all the time. Like the more you're saying don't do something, the more you think about it. It's just like constantly conscious, and so all you want to do is do it if you're knowing that you can't do it.
I'm going to take this.
What is it? Okay.
Wow. You're not supposed to do that. If somebody comes and tries to take something from you, that inhibiting type thing, I'm going to take something away. What's the common human reaction? No, you won't. That's mine. That's what dieting is.
That triggers like a rebelliousness
Mhm.
in any age.
Right.
Oh.
That's so random with school.
I might be developmentally like, getting there.
You learn so much about you.
I definitely am going through a teenage phase right now.
So, or just a little bit ago, you started saying stop doing that versus, and then we kind of just like never said.
Oh, yeah.
Can you finish that?
Wow.
So my brain's been like, stop thinking about it.
Well, it's supposed to keep me accountable. Come on.
So
now.
like aiming for something
Yeah.
over and over.
So yeah. So instead of the stop doing, it's that just thinking values. What do you want to go for? And let's go after something that you see positively and want to go after, rather than trying to just stop doing the thing that you don't want to do. So going back to the diet. The dieting concept is don't eat that bad food. Take it away from yourself. Well, your brain goes, hell no. I want that bag of chips. I want that container of ice cream. I want whatever that is. And you pull back on it. Whereas what's been found to actually be a way, if that's a direction that you want to go, for whatever reason you want to go in that direction, it's the idea of adding to your diet. What do you want to add that you think would be good for you in a way? So you start adding different, find some fruits and vegetables and different things that, typically maybe weren't a part of your thing, but you like well enough, and you start adding it to your diet. And then your brain and your body start to say, oh, vitamins and minerals. We've never had those before. And we've been longing for them. Let's get more of those. We didn't realize they existed anymore. And so it actually starts to change your taste buds. And then you start to actually crave that flavor over the things that weren't as healthy. And it is.
I feel like I have tried that.
Oh,
Have you guys had success with that? Have you read? There's a book called No Sweat. It's about the neurobiological process of like exercise motivation and what actually like helps keep that like consistent through a long study. Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of it for sure. It's really interesting. Okay.
but Lisa, that's fair. Let's acknowledge that.
I'm glad it works. I'm gonna try it again.
Oh yeah.
But in anything we ever talk about here, there's always exception. There's always a danger in anything I say from up here. Because somebody can always come up with the exception, and I have to be like the left right hemisphere, like, yep. Nothing's perfect. Nothing's there. So yeah.
And isn't it usually like food is one thing, but phone is another? So it's something if it's something you rely on, you rebel against it. But also your brain is just used to having it. In the case of food, it's just like there's just not enough, and you're hungry, and your brain can't fight that. You can only fight that for so long. If you are maybe if they take away your phone, I'm thinking of the client you saw we were talking about yesterday, and they feel really disconnected.
Sure.
Like their brain feels kind of isolated and sad.
Well, it does.
Yes.
That's the autoletic dopamine hit.
Yes. Okay.
So we get dopamine from our phones, and when you stop using the things that provide that dopamine, you go into a dopamine deficit for a period of time until you come back to baseline again. And so we are so used to not whatever device it is. And so when it's taken away, we're going to be sad for a period of time until we come back. But most of us aren't willing to go through that sad period. Because if you've been doing it for a long time and you build up a huge deficit, that down period is going to be significant until you can bounce back up. So, but whether you like the diet analogy or not, that wasn't the point of all this. It's that idea of aiming for things versus the inhibiting. So it's a great way to approach things and teach parents and teachers. Don't go that negative route where it's take away, inhibit, let's not do that. But it's what do we want to go after? It's kind of similar to that. It's not using the phrase don't do it, but what are your values? It's helping people see what do you really value in life? What do you want to go after? Is that helping you? And they might not make the connection at first, but the more, like the young person that I was talking about, earlier, that I've been working with for 4 or 5 years here, we're talking about the values of what they want to get out of life, and what their behaviors were, almost getting kicked out of school and all these different kind of things. And so we're helping kind of not just say don't do those behaviors anymore. It's really talking about who are you and what do you want out of life? Let's go after that. So it's kind of like the yes-no thing too. You can kind of feel the difference in your body of a let's go do something versus a stop and don't do it. There's a very different feeling to it.
Just a random thought, but all of this brain development, does any of it slightly differ for adolescents who have cognitive disabilities? Or is it all pretty virtually the same, just shown in a different way?
So we are talking like more neurotypical. Some of these things in different neurodivergent brains can be different. If there's cognitive delays, it depends on which part of the brain. Things may not operate the same. They might not have the same capability. So that's.
Right, 'cause I know, like in some cases, there'll be a scenario where cognitively they're in high school, physically their body like they're in high school, but they're at a third grade level, second grade level.
Yep.
Learning level. So I guess in that scenario, I was just thinking about what all this might look like for that individual.
Yeah, I see in certain disorders when I work with, there's often in certain mental and emotional ways a 2-year delay from what I see in the typical, from like, if I did the bell curve, what tended to be the average for that age range. So I can think of a young man that I work with still. He's out of high school now, working with since probably the end of middle school or somewhere in middle school. And that's your train of thought, Brian. So
You try it.
Station.
the food kick in. What were we just saying?
2-year delay.
2-year, thank you. That's perfect. 2-year delay. So I was sitting down with the parents. The diagnoses that I wasn't expecting came back. That helped to clarify for me more. Like, okay, I often see this. So what we're seeing, mental and emotional development wise, they are functioning a couple years behind their peers. Then I learned from the parents, actually, physically wise, they're on medication right now because their body's 2 years behind as well. And so they're doing some things to catch up his body with, because it also had a delay in its development. I don't know how that's the first time I had ever heard of that. But both were 2 years away. So I really had to work with the parents to help them understand, you are looking at a junior in high school right now, but you have to think about them as a freshman. Like, because expectations are, well, I see other people who are juniors, I see what your friends are doing, you should be doing that exactly. But sometimes there's a delay, and then you have to, it's hard to calibrate because they're big, they're older, they want to do the things as their same age peers are doing, but another level of development is a couple years back, or what you were saying could be way far. I had another family I worked with where I think she was in middle school, very low functioning autism. And wrestling with the dad, mom was fine with it, but middle school, they'd be walking through Walmart, and it's just like, I want to buy that baby doll, and just plays more like a toddler or kindergartner might want to sit down and play with a baby doll. Dad was really, mom's just like, that's where she's at developmentalized. Let's let her do it. Dad was just like, no, I'm not going to have my middle school daughter playing with a baby doll. So we really, I don't think we ever resolved that one. This was a really tricky family to work with.
Are they always going to be that 2-year behind, or is there shorter enough in time, or is it just parts?
Well, when we get older, like in
real.
knock it off. Stop it. Well, like in this room, yeah, we have age differences, but it kind of blurs unless we point it out, Lisa. I don't sit here and my brain isn't just 100% saying I can tell. I know what each person's age. Eventually, it kind of blurs out. It's just during that age of development, there's so much happening. And there's so much expectation of what development looks like with each year. It's very clear that you're not functioning the way the average person your age is functioning. So it does tend to level out after that. Unless you have the major delay, then that's.
I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head, but if you come up with any resources that may be related to what we're talking about right now, like the cognitive disabilities or anything like that, I'd like you throw them our way. I can also hop on the end that myself, but you're a resource too, so I don't know if you know anything.
Yeah, I'm not. I have my few resources that I really sit in.
Sure.
I just don't have the time to constantly be mining through resources. But some of this is an area. I usually have a topic that I want to study every year to kind of add to my knowledge base. And some of this area is an area I really kind of want to take the next year. I just haven't quite stepped into it. Probably this summer I'll start. So maybe.
Do it together.
Yeah, there you go.
Tammy would have something. Tammy, your friend.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the significant developmental delays is not something that it's not an area that I don't have many clients. Usually I'm working with. Yeah.
Sometimes clinics and things that work with certain populations will have reading lists, like for parents and things.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know of any off the top of my head, but that might help too.
Are we talking just neurodevelopmental or trauma as well?
Right.
For age difference because of trauma. So they're gonna still so if you experience a traumatic event in your childhood, when you're in adolescence, there still could be a gap about where they're at developmentally.
100%.
Okay, for sure.
Yep.
And so individuals too, with the childhood ADHD and other neurodivergent things, what have you.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great addition. Yep. Yeah. Trauma. We've kind of talked about that. You have a traumatic experience, and you respond as you would naturally at that age level, and that's what helped you get through. So you knew a strategy. There's a tendency to keep using that strategy and to project it forward, so that we're using later in life. We're using a slightly more grown-up version. I didn't look at you. Grown-up version of a strategy that really comes from that younger traumatized part. Does that make sense?
Totally.
All right. What are we doing here? So this integrating your brain. As our brain is going through this adolescent process, it's actually reducing the number of neurons. So neurons are letting go, and the number of connections being remade. It's based on what you're doing at that time of life. Not as many are doing. So that's the pruning process. So it reduces the number of neurons and synapses, so it prunes. where it goes, again, just always that reminder, starts with genetics, experience, what was your life experience, so traumas and different things like that, and, our brains right now are being affected by stress. You've got a year and a half of stress, or no? How many? I got you in here longer already, so not 9 months of stress so far. That impacts things. Who can tell me what myelination is? Does anybody remember that? Tag team it.
Is it the thickening of the myelin sheath, like the thing that connects the neurons to where the neurotransmitters are?
It connects two neurons together.
Two neurons.
I was not even anywhere in that.
So myelination. So myelin, that's, remember the glow sticks and the little connector that connects them together, so you get two neurons that find each other and say, we want to communicate with each other. And when they fire, it's like, oh, this is good, this is helpful, it starts to lay down myelin over it. And so what you're really good at in your life is something you've probably done over and over and over again. And those neural connections have a ton of myelin. All right? Whether it's your knowledge, whether it's your physical ability or musical ability, if you speak a language, whatever neuron set it is, has a ton of myelin. So what's integrating your brain? It reduces neurons. It's pruned based on these things. It's going to start myelinating together what it needs going forward. So here's an important concept. Where and how you focus your brain's attention really matters. Okay? Your brain goes in the direction of what you pay attention to. So the things that you do over and over again, whether they're healthy or unhealthy for you, the more you do anything, the more you're telling your brain, this is what we need to survive. If I hate to use the analogy, but I will because it's our most common one. If you go to your phone over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, the only conclusion your brain can make is, must be paramount to our survival. We need to fire those neurons together. We need to lay down more and more myelin, and the more you do that, the more you're going to want to go back to it, and that's going to be the path. So where and how you focus your brain's attention determines the integration. So having that conversation and helping what are your values? Where do you want to go in life? You're not setting the values for people, but you're helping people have that conversation. And this can be one of those pieces of education. So what are you doing to help yourself get there? If you're pointing in a different direction and you're strengthening that constantly, the likelihood of you getting there is going down and down. If that's truly where you want to go, can I help you learn how to move in this other direction, and we can reinforce these things that you want to help you move in that direction. So it's a pretty concrete reality. Where do you want to go? Focus your brain in that direction. Another big thing Siegel talks about briefly there is to help teens and parents communicate their needs and concerns with each other. Parents' needs are valid, right? Their concerns are valid. Students' needs are valid. Their concerns are valid. I see one of my greatest things, I think I've talked about that. I'm not for a student against a parent or a parent against a student. I'm there as a bridge to help communication happen, help them see what their needs are and communicate it, help them, students, parents might come in with concerns. Students come in with just as many concerns. Parent keeps taking my phone away. I don't understand why. It's not making sense to me. This isn't connecting. It's not changing anything. Can we do things differently? Because this goes back to like we talked about with like just the taking your phone away. They had a method that they learned. My parents just took things away. That's just how it worked, and I did some things differently because of that. So I'm just going to take things away, even though if my student doesn't understand why we're going in that direction. The only strategy I know is to take things away. That got wired into their brain. And so helping to build a bridge between the two worlds can help, in a way, prune those apart and start rebuilding in the direction that both benefit the parent and the student together. You get to talk for a minute. Oh, we got an odd number. All right. Remember the hand model of the brain? I want you to explain it to your neighbor as best you can at this moment. Alexis, you're going to do it with me.
I wasn't in class when you taught this.
Don't worry whether you know it fully or not. I want you to just think. You can pull up your notes if you want.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sending this to my birthday, but I remember things that keep you going on your birthday or your brainstem. And then this is
Brainstem, limbic,
amygdala,
amygdala,
cortex.
What is this?
I can't
I want
remember
to
how
walk by and have
Perfect.
problems.
Right, and I can't remember if I wrote it.
The brainstem is kind of what is the brainstem?
Actually, I remember the talk. I remember the yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, you go. See that I knew. All the brain was
Brainstem?
Yep.
And this is the one that's affected by it because it's affected by
Liar, liar. I love that.
Yeah, see, I know it's one of the brainstem.
And then
I
all
did.
Emotional regulation. Heartbeat.
Trying to look for the one that when he was shorter, like,
Memory, emotion,
I think it's more
motivation.
like really important to address.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, because when you flip your lid,
I wish I would have like good at but I was trying to actually write that.
I mean, we can get some of the test stuff, but we are made for freshmen.
I'd say some people can do that by
Yeah, I just remember like flipping your lid and it's hard on like regular starting to read. Yeah.
I think of it in a way.
just keep practicing.
Yes.
I think of it a way when my capacity for that is 100%. How much of that do I spend managing my emotions?
What's this?
And brainstem,
What happens in the brainstem?
neuro, nerves.
Breathing. Heartbeat. Wake or sleep. Fight or flight.
Limbic system.
Which is amygdala, hippocampus. Memory. Remember that rote memory thing in the fight? Emotions. Motivation. Evaluation. This is why I repeat things. Cortex, what happens here? Decision making. Rational.
Oh, what's that thing called? Executive function.
Yeah, all the executive function stuff. Future planning, emotional regulation, learning, logic, all those kind of things are over here. And the prefrontal cortex, be your fingernails. This is what really integrates it all together. As that develops, it starts to pull it all together. Okay? That's what we do. So I just wanted to go back to that. So and just practice a little. So I mean, when you see me do this, like I said, I've done this thousands of times. So I've gotten used to explaining it, and it's just kind of what I do. But I just want to give you enough practice because some of you have already said I kind of talk with people about it, or I've been thinking about it. So I just want to keep giving you just little chances to practice and kind of put you on the spot to see, am I taking a little bit of step forward? Like, how would I explain this to a client? If I really wanted to use it in therapy, how could I explain it to a client? You got to practice. All right. So, with the brain, energy and information from the cortex, limbic area, brainstem, body. Siegel always refers to the brain as the embodied brain. This is not separate from this. There are neurons from the brain that surround your heart, surround your lungs, surround your gut. There's constant flow of information from your body to what we typically call our brain. So neuroscientists love to call it the embodied brain because guess where intuition comes from?
Your body.
It literally. Why do we call it your gut? It literally comes from neurons in that gut region. Is where that is. It connects with your brain. And the social world. As much as we don't necessarily always want to be connected with each other, every decision you make, Rebecca, no problem. Throws were bad. But Rebecca not being here shifted our time together a little bit, right? We have one less person. Rebecca might have shared something that might have shifted the conversation. I do something here today that affects you. You go home, and that effect that it had on you has an effect on somebody else in your life. That down the road has an impact on somebody halfway across the world. We are all interconnected. Siegel loves to emphasize that. If we think we're just these little islands by ourselves, and if I just sit here and don't do anything, I only impact me, it's not true. So he sees social integration as well.
May you please restate what you said about the gut feeling? Because I feel like I want to know that, and I can't articulate it right now.
So intuition, we often say it's kind of my gut feeling. So there are neurons that come from the brain to get the information that gets processed here. There's neurons around our heart. There's neurons around our lungs. There's neurons around our gut. Hello, people. And they.
Oh, no,
Still
it's
in here.
not. Plate's fine. Priority.
Oh.
Ryan.
I looked down, I look up, and Brian's in
All right. Is that it?
Did you need more?
Huh?
Did you need more?
Her plate.
Oh, is it? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're still on plate. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted these two.
Oh, so let me know I can afford the plate. Oh, first beat.
Hey, game, right? Sorry.
All right. Yeah, all right. That's enough violence for today.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I'll eat it.
All right.
Last one.
So, what we're saying. So each one of these
Yeah.
regions has neurons that connect and cover them. So your heart, what's happening here is communicating with your brain. Your lungs, I mean, well, think about it. Heart and lungs, where are they connected with? And, regulated by, your brainstem here. So we have them around our gut as well. So, what we're learning, mental health can get affected by our gut flora and our biome.
Just gonna say that I was just reading an article about people taking pre-probiotics and changing diets because it was linked to mental health and depression, and a lot of people were able to get off that.
So motion centers are more, not exclusively people, right? Not exclusively, but more primarily in this region of the brain. I talked about how light coming into our eyes can get funneled down here. What we have in our gut can get funneled up. And so, Victoria, that intuition, why do they say it kind of comes from the gut? Because literally, there are the neurons that are kind of around our gut region. And I don't know why, we have a feeling. I feel it in my gut. There's just something that's telling you. Well, that's because we have things that fire in different parts of our body. That's why they call it the embodied brain. It's not just the brain on a stick here. It really connects and communicates with everything and is integrated and works together.
How does all this relate to the vagus nerve?
I will bring Harry Payton and talk to you about that. She's
Yeah,
really good with polyvagal
Totally
theory.
all about that.
Yeah, actually, genuinely. I have when I got my nose surgery done in January last year, you take all these medicines and make you not be able to do number 2, right? And so because I'm the this is my first exposure to it, and I'm scared. Literally, and so when I finally go to the bathroom, right, this is genuinely one of the scariest moments of my life, and I was told it was maybe the vagus nerve. When I was finally going to the bathroom, I literally had stroke symptoms, where like the left half of my face went numb and kind of started I slurred and it was, and my hand did this thing, and genuinely, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I luckily my mom was there, and I wasn't alone, but someone told me vagus nerve, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying to me. Why did I almost die? I almost had an Elvis moment.
Did they tell you that would happen? Like your doctor? They didn't.
It wasn't I mentioned it to my doctor, and they were very helpful.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no idea what just happened to me. So I don't know. Is that really genuinely related? Because I need to know.
I'll connect you with Carrie Payton.
No, it hasn't happened since. So was it a stress response? I don't know. Boy, I was.
Wait,
I
you
feel
were
like we're so
really
much closer
aware
to you
that
now.
that was happening? You saw it. It wasn't like your mom.
Well, my mom saw it too. She didn't know what to do about this. She didn't die. But I'm never having another surgery now.
This view is not
All right.
soft.
Because I have some concrete things at the end I want to get to. I'm going to fly through a little bit more of this material, so I'm sorry. I love going in different directions. I love sitting on things and really fleshing them out. But this is always the case. Getting a little bit behind. So, we've talked about the remodeling process of the brain. The remodeling changes in the integrated frontal areas of the cortex are responsible for the finding that as teens, we begin to become aware of ourselves and to think about life in conceptual and abstract ways. Abstract thinking about ourselves and how we connect with others, as that develops, then that starts to integrate things. That's where that thinking begins to develop. That's why it doesn't develop until that time, because remember, the brain is developing from the back to the front. So this is primarily developed even when we're born, and then we just keep developing this until we're about 25, and then keep reshaping it. All right. Gateway to creative exploration with this brain stuff. What we do or do not think, feel, discuss, or do with those around us helps determine how we develop. So once again, that's kind of what you focus on really kind of sets your direction. So all of those things, it's not just what we think, but what we feel, what we discuss, what we do with those around us. So if you have a topic, have you ever been with somebody who's just they have one thing that they ever talk about, and they can't get off that? Most of us tend to have something related to that, where we get something that we're kind of passionate about, and we just lay the neural connections, and we just talk and, I mean, look what I do here. This is kind of my area. You know, I got so much from so many years just sitting up here that you can take me in whatever direction. Oh, you want to talk about that? Let's go there. Oh, let's go over here. You know, that's my thing. Hopefully I'm not totally driving you crazy yet. But what we do or not do, feel, discuss, and do with those around us helps determine how we develop. So it's ourselves. How do you want to develop again? And what do your clients want? How can you help them? Creative exploration opens up new ways of seeing the world not previously available to us, and it drives innovation. All right, that's not too much new. These are just kind of some quotes. If we as adults push back severely against these natural changes, rejecting adolescents as they reject us, because they're going to, but that's developmentally appropriate, the result can be a shutting down of all communication between the generations. And we've seen some of that. Adolescents didn't used to be isolated from adults. I can show you researchers who tracked how we shifted as a culture, began isolating. We began isolating adolescents. They saw the chasm and said, fine, we'll develop our own life. So the call is to increase empathetic understanding and respectful communicating, creating integration across the generations. So you can see how many different ways. So this is like that social integration that Siegel's talking about, saying none of us are disconnected from somebody completely halfway around the world. You know, it's like the Kevin Bacon thing, 6 degrees of separation, right? You know, like we all know somebody. We all have impacts and influences. So the call is to increase our empathetic understanding and respectful communicating with adolescents, and we can begin to create integration, again, across the generations that have been separated over the last few decades. Creating collaboration across the generations. For those of you who read, you can go back and read. There's a band example. Group of 5 young people did the Back to the Future thing where they stacked amplifiers on each other and played their instruments to see what kind of response they could get coming out of the amplifiers. Almost shattered a bunch of windows. So this was in a school. So it really created a disruptive ruckus. And so what does the school do? Say, you are not allowed to use this musical area anymore, which was the passion of these 5 students. Well, guess what started to happen with these students? Huge acting out. So an amplification of the problem because they didn't have their one outlet that was really helpful. Did they do something that probably wasn't smart and could have really done some damage? Yes. But now you've taken away the one outlet they have of their creativeness, with their music and their band. And so, I'm trying to remember if it was Siegel himself or somebody went in and basically talked with the school. And they negotiated and talked about everything that we're talking about today. And so they actually made a thing where if you promise never to do certain things again, here are the ground rules, we'll let you back in. 3 years later, they ended up graduating without another incident. But realizing if they had kept that restriction in place and punishment for the thing that they did, they probably would have had major behavioral challenges the rest of the way. So, my question, really brief, what did you think about the bad example? But I just kind of shared it with you. The intentions behind the actions. We've talked about that many times with children and adolescents. Don't just look at the behavior, what's behind the behavior. So this adult was able to go advocate with the school that, you know, the intention was not to break down the school with what they did. Did they do something stupid? Yes. But the intention behind it wasn't bad. But the punishment is not matching that, and that is detrimental to them, and now even more to the school as a whole. Can we come up with a different solution by seeing the intention behind the actions and come up with a contained way for them to continue to flesh out what they're passionate about. And we've already talked about, remember, when you do the thing you're passionate about, what does that do? It enhances brain growth and development. So not only therapy, but doing things we're passionate about really helps us go through that adolescent time with brain development. So it's a time of vulnerability and opportunity. Pruning, as we've talked about, can expose difficulties. This is when a lot of mental health challenges can pop up. High stress, middle school, high school, college, grad school. High stress can make it worse. So a couple questions I often have asked, and maybe we can talk about these more in the future, because I do have a couple things I want to get to. Adults will look at me and say, so Brian, you just talked about remodeling. Is what my student experiencing, is it just remodeling, or is it something more? Is there something I should really be concerned about, and when to get help? We've already talked about that's a really hard question to answer. I would say if you could use some support, go ahead and seek out some help. But I know a lot of students. But if a student doesn't want to go, be careful about pushing therapy on them. And I've shared that with you. I'm not a big fan of students being forced to go, because that can just take them away from actually wanting to go later on in their life when they might actually be interested and could benefit from it if they're not ready to do the work now. But if they want to go, with everything we're talking about, is therapy going to be harmful unless it's forced on them? Anytime we can learn self-reflection and gain some of those skills could be beneficial to our development. I might have to save my last things for next week. We'll see if we get to one. Remodeling and flipping lids. Adolescents are most prone to flipping. And flipping the lid just like drugs. Sorry, I always ask this question. I don't remember if I mentioned this again. Have I ever talked about how we were taught not to do therapy sessions with somebody who's high or drunk? Did I talk about that? Okay. Because you can actually make progress with somebody with a drunk or high brain. But what part of the brain are you working with? Down here. It's just like when you flip your lid. So therapy, you want to be working with this part, because this part can help integrate everything. If they come in drunk and high, or their lid's already flipped, you're working with this part of the brain. And you can actually make changes in this part of the brain, but then when this part of the brain comes down, guess what's not there anymore? You're making changes here, but we tend to live out of here most of the time. And so we want access to the part that can integrate everything. So adolescents are more prone to flipping, and flipping kind of works like drugs. I just kind of want to mention that. We've talked about the context, friends being around, and the emotional state can have an impact on flipping their lid. Happens quickly and unconsciously. We often get on students for their attitudes and how they're coming at us. They're not sitting there saying, I want to flip my lid. How many of you, when you really get mad and upset, are just like, I have a plan. I'm going to get mad and upset in this way. No, we don't do that. We just flip our lid and we go. They're doing the exact same thing. Temporary shifts. Eventually lead to improvements. So again, it's why they're going through this. They have to turn off the electricity. They have to take down the plumbing to get the eventual benefit out of things. The more you work with the brain, the more it will improve. So, again, maybe I should just pick one of the slides. He kind of does say the same thing over and over again. I tend to put it in, so I might need to pare this down a little bit to get through faster. But learning to cut ourselves slack and cut student slack and just learn respect of one another. Adolescent builds integration. Prefrontal region coordinates and balances the cortex, the limbic, the brainstem, the body, and the social world. We've talked about that. Adolescence builds integration. Integration supports self-awareness, reflection, planning, decision-making, empathy, and morality. So empathy and morality are up in this cortex region as well. Something we haven't mentioned there. The emotional lower brain is more active in adolescence. He highlights the fact, what I showed you with the dad face. Neutral to an adolescent equals negative, and intentional. It accesses the intentional part of the brain. They think you're being intentional. It uses the fast route to the amygdala. There's a slower route that goes through your do I need to put a blocker on this? Should I control this? So there's a slow route to the amygdala that it kind of goes through filters that ask questions, and then there's the fast route that just says do. So adolescent brain tends to use the fast route to the amygdala more, and we've talked about name entertainment. Hardwired for adventure and connection. It can be more dangerous not to take risks. You might really get stuck in life if you don't learn how to take a risk. I can think of risk aversion clients that I have that they are really frustrated because they want to do some things in life, but they're so risk adverse they can't move in that direction. So our goals in working with them, do no harm, and keep the lines of communication open. All right, yay!
Yeah.
I got to do at least one thing with you. So some tools. This comes from the gray section. Learning this self-reflection and awareness piece. One of the concepts is we live so much of our life, technology, so many other things that we do have us focused on what's around us rather than our internal world. And so one of the great things we can do, whether we call it mindfulness, meditation, or whatever, are things that help us move to a time and space. So here, I'm going to start with one today, and I'm going to add some more as we start next week. So we'll start with those next week. So I want to teach you the breath awareness exercise. Okay? Most people think about breathing exercises, and it's about relaxation, correct? This is not about relaxation. This is about training the part of your brain and the prefrontal cortex dedicated to focused attention. So you can actually gain, anybody, if you struggle with focused attention, a couple minutes a day or a few minutes a day of practicing this can, over time, over a few months, help you dial in your focused attention. Okay? So, that clock's always fast. So what I want you to do is I would like you to just start by noticing your breath. Notice that you're breathing. Now I'd like you to pay attention to your breath at the level of your nose. Notice and feel the air go in and out. Is it warm? Is it cool? Just let yourself become aware of your breath going in and out of your nose. Now I want you to switch your attention. I'd like you to become aware of your breath at the level of your lungs. You can notice your chest expanding and contracting. Some people can even notice and feel the air filling and compressing out of their lungs, but just let yourself become aware of your breath at the level of your lungs. And finally, I'd like you to become aware of your breath at the level of your stomach or your diaphragm. Okay, so notice your stomach expanding and contracting. position, this one might be a little bit easier. Now I'm going to hit the pause button for a second. Maybe come back to it. So, question. Were you able to notice your breath at each one of those levels? Okay. Here's the thing. Aren't you always breathing every moment of every day at all three levels? Okay. But when I asked you to, you weren't paying attention to any of those levels before I asked you to. It was just happening. But when I asked you to, you were able to shift your attention and focus on a different area of your body. Now, one might have been easier than the rest, but you were able to do that. So we just proved, unless you weren't able to do that this part of your brain of focused attention does work. And this is just like a muscle. If you train this enough, you can gain it. If your brain tends to want to bounce, and our culture trains our brain to bounce these days. There's so much of what we do in our culture that it's not, what am I paying attention to? It's what else could I be paying attention to? And we train our brain to bounce. And scientists are studying this. But this is the integration balance thing. You don't have to do this hours a day. A few minutes a day of just going to this part of your brain and exercising it like a muscle can help you and your clients over time begin to dial in so that, let's say you have intrusive thoughts or other things that are coming into your head, and you're like, I don't want to think about that right now, but right now you don't have the power not to. Your client doesn't have the power not to. You can gain the strength and ability through this breath exercise to over time begin to focus your attention, and that ties into one of the concepts we talked about is what you pay attention to is where your brain is going to go. And so we can do things therapeutically to help our brain focus and go more in the direction that we would like it to go. So that is one of my staple. I have a handful of staple and IPNB exercises that I give to people when they come in with different things. And that's one of my classic ones. It's on mine. So, quick thought or question before I let you go? I'm feeling fresh to let you go. All right, save your questions for next week. We'll come back. We'll start with a little bit more of this. Thanks, everybody.
Let me stop this quick. I have been